Ooh, quite a musical change after that intro. Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Herman. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Gnomon, and today we're on Archetype, a new stream that we're having every Tuesdays, where I'll be talking about and working on different character archetypes for a while. So yeah, I'm excited to be working on this new show. Going to be working on a bunch of new characters and new stuff, and we're going to be going through that very shortly as far as what this show is going to be like, what the stream structure is going to be like, who I am, and all that kind of interesting stuff. But just first off, welcome to the stream and thank you for being here. I see a couple of people in the chat. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you, Enzo. Appreciate that. Hello, Alex is here as well. Hi. Yeah, so in case you don't know who I am, let's start with a quick introduction. My name is Josh Herman, and I'm going to show you a little bit of my portfolio at the beginning of this. So if you have any questions about what I'm working on or what we're working on, please shout it out and let me know. And adjust the music to make sure that everything sounds good and isn't too loud or anything like that. So if there is any issues, it is the internet, so sometimes things happen. If there's any issues, please let me know, and I'll do my best to fix them as fast as possible. Ash Blossom, welcome. See a couple other people joining. Hello, hello, everybody. All right, I'm going to quickly just pull up my ArtStation here so we can go ahead and take a quick look at that. In case you've never been to ArtStation, it's an awesome website that is a portfolio, probably the industry standard for portfolio sites for artists. I have my Camtasia on, so I'm going to hide that really quickly. Cool. Go ahead and start that. You weren't supposed to see that. We'll pretend that this never happened. All right, so this is my portfolio here. I was very fortunate enough to work on a bunch of really cool projects over my career, but I'm actually a graduate of Gnomon. I ended up graduating from Gnomon in 2009. So I did the 2-year program at Gnomon, went through the whole thing, and ended up working at Legacy Effects, which was a practical effects company. So you can see some of my first projects down here, working on the movie Real Steel, so doing some robots for that movie. In case you've seen it, I just watched it probably a couple months ago, and I actually still really like it. It holds up really well. And I recently saw that it was on one of the best robot films of all time, which is pretty interesting. So this is Noisy Boy from that film, and this is Ambush from the film. This is the first character that you actually see on, first robotic character you see on screen in the film. So I got a chance to do that and work there. And while working at Legacy, I got to work on a bunch of other cool things. Some things like Total Recall here, working with live action suits. And then, of course, I ended up working on the Avengers, first doing a maquette for the Hulk. So this was something that was a collaboration between myself and Ryan Meinerding and Charlie Wynn. And we kind of made this sculpture. It ended up being something that was put on or made for Sideshow. They ended up doing some collectibles of this, which was pretty awesome. And then I got a chance to work on Iron Man there. So this was my first Iron Man suit that I ever did. In case you know who I am or know my portfolio or saw at a glance, I've done a lot of Iron Man stuff, a lot of robot and hard surface characters. So this is the Mark 7 from the end of Avengers, the Marvel's Avengers, the first one. And so I got to work there, and then eventually I tried my hand at working in games. So I worked at Naughty Dog on Uncharted 3. So while that game was being shipped, so I worked in film and practical effects and games. And then as well as working in, after I worked at Naughty Dog, I worked at Marvel Studios for about 5 years, working on all different types of characters there, mostly CG characters. So you're going to look at characters like Iron Man, stuff like that. So several different versions of Iron Man, versions of War Machine, for example, right? Stuff like this. And I was also the key and main designer of Groot for Guardians of the Galaxy. So doing concept art as well and getting into character design was a big part of what I ended up doing there. So this is the final concept art I did for Groot. Got a quick question from the chat. Does Gnomon have a public Discord server? Not at the moment, but that's definitely something we've been entertaining. So if you're excited about that or you'd be interested in a public Discord, let us know. Let's see what else we got here. More versions of Iron Man, Ultron, IG-88s, more concept art here, Star-Lord, Spider-Man. Doing concept art and doing character design and character visual development for whole tons of different types of characters. And then I went back to games, worked on games for a little while, and that was a fun experience, basically staffing up a team as an art director and as a creative director. And then now working at Gnomon. I've been working at Gnomon for 2 years. So you can see some of my more personal artwork here. And then recently, as of, let's see, 2 months ago, I just finished doing the Unreal Fellowship. So I did a short film completely made in Unreal, which was awesome. And really I'll probably play this short film during my break, which I'll take about an hour into the stream. So for all the rest of the streams, I'm not going to do this rundown and housekeeping at the beginning, but good for everybody to kind of know what we're going to be doing. You'll be able to see this in about 40 to 50 minutes is when we get into that stuff. Yes, it'd be wonderful for a public Gnomon Discord. Good to know. All right. We will definitely keep that in mind as far as something we want to open up for the future. So that's the quick about me. Let's talk a little bit about the stream. So welcome to Archetype, like I said. And in case you don't know, we're going to be using the 12 archetypes, Carl Jung's 12 archetypes that were created as kind of a structure, an overall structure for this show. As part of the show, as compared to previous ones like Art Jam or being on info sessions, the goal of the show will be to eventually make finished art pieces. There are 12 archetypes, so my goal is to make 12 pieces, finished pieces, by the end of 2022. That's the big overarching goal. And since there's 12, we're going to more or less complete one character every month. So within 4 to 5 streams, you should see the completion of a character, and that will be from concept and execution to modeling and sculpting to texturing and putting in a render, lighting, and then presentation. So we'll be going through the whole process of all that different types of stuff. There will be some off-stream work that I'll be doing just to be able to put in enough time on the character, so you won't be able to see everything that I do on stream, but we will be having this stream every week from 10 to noon till the end of the year. At least that's the time frame we're holding for now, to the end of the year, where you can check out the process of what I'm doing, and I'm going to be happy to explain what I'm working on and how I'm doing it. What texture software will I be using? For the first one, we'll be doing something very simple. We'll be doing it in Quixel. So we'll be doing some probably a hard surface character or sort of organic hard surface character in Quixel. And so that'll be the first one that we use. Good question, though. Thank you. And I do like this stream to be as open as possible, meaning if you have questions in the chat, I'm going to try to answer them as fast as I possibly can and be engaged with the chat as fast as I can. So please ask questions, please engage, and I'm happy to do the same. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the stream, like I was saying. The other element of this that I want to work on is going to be showing you actually just kind of my general process. Not necessarily like my process from sculpting. You're going to see a lot of my sculpting process. You're going to see a lot of my texturing process and all that, and character creation process and all that, but actually how I work on a project. So the first thing I'm going to show you is going to be probably not super exciting to some of you, but to some of you could be a big game changer for you. I'm going to show you how I organize my thoughts. So the behind the scenes stuff that most people don't see. The program that I like to use for this is Trello. In case nobody has ever used Trello, it's essentially a digital place where you can put post-it notes. It's a thoughts organizer, and you can use it as sort of a way to organize the way that you work or things like that. So I'm going to bring that on screen really quickly. And this is what Trello looks like. We can also use this as a really good tool to kind of break down what all the archetypes are. So I'm going to walk through all of those, what this wheel that you see is, and then just some other quick links that I'll be accessing pretty commonly during the rest of the stream. So what you can do in this, in case you have never used Trello before, is you can make a card, meaning you can click anywhere, you can type what you want it to be, and then you can add it. So that's what I've done in all of these here on the left. And then you can also drag and drop them to different phases. So we'll be doing that later when we progress with the sculpts and as things get a little bit more final. So let's start with the archetypes. What are the 12 archetypes? Who are they and what do they mean? So one of the big things that we can look at, I'll open this in a new tab and I'll just make it slightly larger. It'll be slightly blurry, but that's okay. These are the 12 archetypes that Carl Jung created. In case you don't know what that is, essentially these are 12 categories that every person and every character falls into. It's not a stereotype, it's an archetype, meaning this can be mixed and matched with other archetypes to combine different characters. But we'll go from the top and kind of go around. So you have the innocent, the sage, the explorer, the outlaw, the magician, the hero, the lover, the jester, the everyman, the caregiver, the ruler, and the artist. Now this thing I found online, if you search 12 archetypes, you'll find this very quickly. The inner ring here is what each one of these characters wants. So the innocent wants safety, the sage wants knowledge, the explorer wants freedom, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go read all of them, but you can kind of see what we're getting at. Now the goal of the stream again is to do 12 different characters, so I'm going to do each of the outsides here, and we're going to use some of the documentation and stuff that's online that you can find. There's a lot of people who have written pretty interesting articles about this, of breakdowns of characters and all that stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these, and the one that I'm going to be starting on today is going to be the artist. So since this is an art channel, this is an art stream, I figured the artist would be a good starting point. Now, what does the artist want? They want to provide and create innovation. I'm going to go through each one of these in a little bit, but you also see this inner core kind of circle here, which is also something that further helps refine them into their kind of zone. So the artist likes to provide structure, right? Whereas the explorer likes to go on a spiritual journey. The jester likes to connect with other people, and the outlaw likes to leave a mark, for example. All of these kind of have their own quadrants and their inner rings as far as they want. So the artist is the one that we'll be starting on for the stream. Now the artist can be broad. It doesn't necessarily have to be just an artist. So we're going to jump out of this. I'm going to hop out of here. Make this normal size again. That's fine. Like the Layers of Fear character. I don't know exactly what that is, the Layers of Fear character, but I don't know if that's a property. I haven't seen it. But yeah, this is what we're going to be starting on. So I'm going to show you a couple other quick links that I have on my board here. What this is I basically have found I have a Pinterest board that we'll be able to look at right now. So this is a secret Pinterest board of which I've started to create some references. So we'll talk about those here in a minute. We also have some archetype links. So these are some of those blog posts and stuff that I found. You can create any of these. So let's say I have this column here, which is called Inspiration and Sketches. All you can do is say, maybe I found something cool visuals. Now, at the beginning, it does nothing, right? So, okay, that's a bummer. But what we can do is we can click on this, and I can drag and drop anything onto it. So if you have watched Art Jam at all, you'll know that I was sculpting a dragon recently, and there was this dragon picture, or this crocodile picture, that I ended up using as a pretty heavy source of reference. So what I can do is I can grab this one or any other image like this one of this Komodo dragon. I can drag it and I can drop it on this from my desktop, and it'll take a second, but now it uploads the image there. And let's say I found something interesting. We'll just use this Pinterest board as an example. I can also put this in the description and hit OK and save. So now I'll have a quick link to this board, and I have this visual that I have as well. So each one of these cards that I can put up here can be easy to navigate. I can also now move these around later to different categories if I find that they're useful. I'm going to delete this because I don't really need it, so I just archive it. And we'll continue down. So this is my Pinterest board. We'll look at that in a second. These are those archetype links. I would recommend, if you're interested in the show or interested in this character design theory part of the show, just Googling and doing some research. These are the ones that I found. And then some lighting references. You also see this in my Pinterest boards, but I'll be showing you these as well. I want to do something that's kind of colorful. So I want each one of them to be able to stand apart from each other, not just on a visual, but also on a quick first read. So that's where you're seeing some of this more stylized lighting reference. That's the first kind of thing that I'll be doing for each one of these, establishing some colors that I think will look well, the lighting, the tone, and all that stuff. I also have, some more quick accessible things like you just saw with this wheel. And then there's a couple other ways that this is broken down. People have taken this information before and have condensed it in different ways, right? So I have all of this on my board. And then you also notice that I have some bonsai trees. And then I have this part of the Sistine Chapel here. The Sistine Chapel is what some of my inspiration for the creator, or sorry, for the artist that I'm working on, right? So the artist can also be a creator of types or an innovator of types. So this was a very inspirational piece for me that I wanted to use. And then you also see these bonsai trees. This is not specifically for one, but this is it's an art form that I really have become inspired by and respect quite a bit. And they're just such beautiful pieces here. So I think that you can create really dynamic shapes and scenes with these. So I kind of just use these just as inspirational pieces. And also nature is really inspiring as well, so I like using it. Let's continue anyways. So what's cool about this is each one of, in Trello, you can have a cover. So as you saw when I dragged the Komodo dragon on, you can pick one, and it can be an image. Here I've already uploaded 4 of these, and I'm going to just pick one. This is the one that I like the most for this piece. So I can make that a cover, and now my Trello board can kind of be something that has images on it, and it can also function as a reference board as well, which is cool. So that's kind of my Trello thing, and we'll be working on that as we move forward. Now I said the first one I was going to work on is the artist. So I've already created all of the archetypes here. We'll open this one up. You see I got some information here and some stuff that I've already written for myself. So I wrote this as far as like what I want this character or to be. I have some examples of what the person could be, and then just some notes that I've jotted down for myself. So this is all of my information on the artist in one block or page. Okay, but I find it really useful to use and really interesting to use. Now, the artist, I keep burying the lead here, but the artist can also be known as the creator. So you can find this stuff online, but essentially they're builders, they're innovators, they're seekers, they're dreamers, they're thinkers, they're distracted by their own thoughts. They frequently have to be pulled in if they're standing in the rain. They may simultaneously have vast knowledge and are yet innocent and impulsive and cautious. So there's a specific kind of an archetype of a character, right? They're creative wizards that they make things. Some of their fears, right, their weaknesses, they can be very perfectionist, very egotism, self-sacrificing. They sometimes just get stuck in what they're doing. So we can look at archetypes, we can look at other characters in media, and we can kind of reference who these could be. So we could probably think of some of these. So I've got a couple quick ones here that we would have. This is the guy from There Will Be Blood, so kind of this innovator creator who goes a little too far, right? And then we also have John Hammond from Jurassic Park is a very good example of that. Other characters like Tony Stark can be seen as a artist or a creator who gets too far. And note that it also can overlap with other archetypes. Not every person is a single defined archetype. So just kind of keep that in mind. But this is what I'm working on. I'll read this to you quickly in case you can't see it for some reason. But this is going to be a quick description of what the character that I'm going to be working on for the next several weeks will be. So, standing alone in a chamber is a magnificent figure of white and gold. The space is lit by the distant light of a moon and by the figure itself. Its whizzing and whirring creates a rhythmic noise as the notes and the lights of the body illuminate the workspace. The impressive figure stands with its large sets of hands, clutching a smaller, more delicate figure in its hands. Little appendages and bots swarm the figure. Our view is in front of the character. It is facing us directly. Its hands clutching the figure are directly in front of it. This is also me trying to frame for myself what we will be seeing as the character or as the image itself. Orange bounce light silhouettes the figure and many of the limbs that are working on it. A bounce light also illuminates the front and creator to show the creator's face. And there's a cool blue light coming from the top of the scene. There's a beauty to this character, and it may look stark in this environment, but it cares deeply about what it's doing. It looks somewhat surgical and terrifying, but there's also so delicate with the figure that it's holding. It almost has a Michelangelo-like quality to it. That was some of what you saw that reference from before. This is a robotic creator that creates absolutely stunning things. It is a creator, but it is also an artist, developing and creating these unique beings that go and live their lives never knowing of its existence. It is alone, but it is happy. It loves watching and observing the world and seeing these creations go on to create things for themselves, always watching, always observing, searching, looking for flaws, imperfections, possible mistakes it could have made. Like any true artist, the creator seeks perfection because once an error has been observed, it is never repeated again. So this is kind of the character inspiration that I have for myself. I wrote this and kind of have figured out who or what this character is going to be, and I'm using this stuff here as kind of pillars that I can build on. So we're going to move this one into our inspiration, sketches, and ideas phase, which we'll be working on today. I'll end up moving this in future streams to these final rendering presentation buckets, so you can kind of see where we are whenever we're on stream. And we'll only have about 6 streams till the end of the year. I'll be taking 2 weeks off near the end of the year where I'll not be streaming. So essentially, you'll see 1 week here, probably 2 weeks here, and then 1 week in this column, and then this column. So that is how that will work. But for now, we'll leave it here. We'll go through the rest of the archetypes in case you aren't aware or don't necessarily know who they are very quickly. We'll go top to bottom on the list. I've organized them based off of, I believe it was left to right. So it kind of goes around in a wheel, starting with caregiver here. We've already done this one though. So the caregiver, in case anybody doesn't know who the caregiver is, Samwise Gamgee is a perfect example of the caregiver. They love their neighbor as themselves. They protect others. They are caregivers. They are completely, they have no selfishness. They give too much of themselves often, right? They can also be known as the saint, the parent, the helper, the supporter, the altruist. So the caregiver is a big one. We'll be going through all of these again through future projects. The ruler, I chose this Snow from Hunger Games, but this is complete power is the #1 control that this type of character works on, or that they care about, right? So they want to exercise their power. They want to exert their fear, and their biggest fear, or exert their power on others and cause fear. And their biggest fears is being overthrown or chaos. This person can also be known as the boss, the leader, the aristocrat, the king, the queen, the politician, the role model, the manager, or the administrator. Continue down. The innocent. I love this one as an example. Buddy the elf is a perfect version of the innocent. The innocent can also be known as the child often. Somebody who is completely unaware of what's kind of going on. And so their motto is to be free and to be paradise, and their goal is to be happy. And their greatest fear is to be punished for doing something bad or doing something wrong. So you can kind of get the sense of what these characters are going to be. Next is the sage. So the sage is the truth will set you free. They need to find the truth, right? They need to use intelligence to analyze and understand the world. Their biggest fear is being duped or misled or ignorance. They seek out knowledge and self-reflection. They're also known as the expert, the scholar, the detective, the advisor, the thinker, the mentor, the teacher, the academic. So many other names for this character, but you can see and think of this type of an archetype in many, many different pieces of media. The explorer. The explorer is a good one, right? Somebody who must explore. They hate being reined in. Their motto is "Don't fence me in," right? They don't like being trapped. Conformity. They sometimes aimlessly wander, and sometimes they become a misfit, but they cannot be contained. They must be out seeking, wandering, being an individual. This is who this person is. The outlaw, or also known as the rebel. Rules are meant to be broken is kind of this person's motto. Their core desire is usually revolution or revenge, right? They have their fear is to be powerless, right? They need to disrupt, destroy, or shock. That's their strategy. Sometimes, like, they're known as the rebel, the revolutionary, the misfit, right? They are not the common, right? They're somebody that is different and is happy to break these rules. The magician. The magician, I guess I did put 2 wizards on this, but that's okay. The magician is somebody who makes things happen. Their core desire is understanding and the fundamental laws of the universe. Their greatest fear is unintended consequences, and they can sometimes become manipulative or be manipulated. They're also known as the visionary, the inventor, charismatic leader. But this is the magician. The hero. Hero is pretty straightforward. It's the hero, right? We're all pretty familiar with who this one would be. Where there's a will, there's a way. Their biggest fear is having a weakness or being vulnerable or being called a chicken or something like that. They're also known as the warrior, the crusader, the rescuer, the superhero, the soldier, the dragon slayer, the winner, and the team player. They are incredibly courageous, right? They're very competent as well. The lover. This is the person who is solely focused on one thing, specifically the lover of a person, but it's having an intimate relationship or experience with the surroundings or the people that they love. Their biggest fear is being alone, being unloved. Their strategy is to become more physically and emotionally attractive, but to become loved. And their weakness is outward directed desire, basically losing themselves in doing that. But they're also known as the partner, the friend, the spouse. We have two more left. The jester here. The jester is, the group who, or the person who, they only live once. They live life to the fullest. They have every moment of their life as a joy. They like having fun, making practical jokes, and their biggest fear is to be bored or boring other people. It's also known as the fool, the trickster, the joker, the comedian, the jester. And then the every person, sometimes known as the everyman, but we can make it more neutral. So that every person is connecting with other people to belong, right? Their greatest fear is that they stand out from the crowd sometimes. They sometimes lose their own self by blending in with other people, but their greatest talent is empathy and realism, also known as the regular person, the good old boy, the person next door, the good neighbor, right? So this is our 12 archetypes that Carl Jung created, and this is the ones that we'll be going over. So we'll be going through these, and in future projects, we'll be picking another one. I'll be picking another one and continuing that piece of art all the way to its completion. And that's kind of the goal of this stream. If anybody has questions on anything, please, as always, let me know, and I'd be happy to talk about it or answer questions as they come up. But that's the basics of what we'll be doing and what we'll be starting on the stream. So again, the first one that we'll be working on today and for the next several weeks as it kind of goes down this pipeline here will be the creator. Cool? So I have done nothing from an artwork standpoint. So I actually wanted to start this completely on stream. I didn't want to come to the beginning of this specific stream, the beginning of it with, a character already made or something like that. So we're going to start from scratch right now. I'm going to do a couple very quick thumbnails in Photoshop. Typically, if I was doing this for a client, or if even I was just doing this for a class or a portfolio or something like that, I wouldn't normally show these to people, but I'm going to just do a very quick sketchy version of what this character or composition could also look like. So we're going to open up our Photoshop. You see I have ZBrush set up already as well. This is going to be my main sculpting tool that I'll be using as soon as I'm done with these quick sketches. And the sketches are really not for to create anything beautiful, meaning I'm not here to draw in Photoshop right now to create a great piece of artwork. I'm realistically using it much like I would use anything else that was in the Trello board that you saw, as just kind of a piece of reference or inspiration for myself and a way to kind of work through the process of what I'm going to be working on. So it's not really intended to be something final. It's just to help generate ideas. And I think that's an important thing for people who are like myself, who I'm not as talented in 2D. What you're going to see here is not going to be the most amazing drawings you've ever seen. I much prefer sculpting, but I do think that if you're on a timeline or you have a specific goal or you want to get something out specifically, that starting with 2D is a really good starting point to just generate and start ideas. All right, here we go. So I know I want to be working in a 4:5 ratio. Some of that is just because of Instagram, but it's a pretty normal portrait size. That's kind of 4:5-ish. It's a little too portrait what I just drew. But I'm going to be working in a portrait composition. So I'm going to be sketching out a couple ideas. And let's just start with what, like, the profile of what I was imagining this character doing. Again, this is going to be sketchy and not great, so we'll see how this goes. But I kind of want to have, I don't know if I like how this drawing one works. There we go. Something that kind of feels like a pen almost. I'm going to start with the character that's in the hands. So it's going to have like a head, and I want it to kind of be, I was imagining it, I don't know if you can see me, it'll be kind of small on the screen, but it almost was like being cradled by a large hand, and it was kind of limp and like, you know, looking, it's not alive basically. So from a profile view, it's going to be looking, and there's going to be like a torso, I guess, and where this, maybe there's like a limp arm that's kind of laying like this, and we'll see this hand. We're going to end up from the viewing side, we're going to be looking this way, but just to know what I'm actually going to be making, I thought that it could be interesting to just kind of almost do like a plan view of what we'll see, right? So maybe there's another leg that's being like cradled or something, then it's going to sit like this, and this arm maybe is being worked on, so it's like out, right? The head is very not in the right place, but that's okay. Again, these are for myself, these aren't really for anybody else. And then I want to have a larger figure, and oddly enough, I was actually looking at the bonsai tree reference that I was looking at, and I felt that this tree shape here was pretty cool, right? That there's something about this. Okay, I'm gonna just do a quick screen cap of this. I don't need the whole thing, so I'm just gonna copy it and move this over. I just like the gesture of this. Where there's something about it where it's like there's something looming over another object, and so that's what I wanted to kind of play with, was maybe there's a larger figure that's kind of in here holding. I don't think it will necessarily be humanoid exactly, but it's going to be holding another character with a hand or a set of hands that are going to kind of be in here. We'll figure out that pose over time. We'll figure out what this character is going to be over time. It probably needs to like cradle this thing's head to an extent so it doesn't like fall off and hurt itself. But there's going to be some larger figure overlooking and overlooming this thing. Have I used PureRef for references before? I have. I like PureRef. I like Quadro, which is another one that I like quite a bit for this kind of stuff. And I want to make some of these little small, maybe there'll be some smaller like sets of hands that are going to come out and like be working on this thing. So again, this is just kind of like a little profile view to kind of get a sense of what the idea is. Any suggestions for good line quality? I don't know if I'm the person to ask for that. I don't think I have terribly good line quality to begin with, but I guess if I had to give you some advice, I would just say try to be confident with it. When you do like sketches like this, like if you're trying to make a arc, right, and it ends up being lots of little sketches to make said shape, you can see there's a very different style there, but it just usually doesn't feel as confident. So just being confident with your lines. So I think that this face, I wanted to try to have like a central thing that will probably branch out maybe, and there will be some things that kind of go around this. Maybe there's some arms that will come in from the outside of frame. What I'll end up doing is I'll end up probably making one or two of these arms and then duplicating it around a bunch. But this is kind of the overall starting point of what I wanted to work in. And I do think I want to have a little bit of like an uncomfortableness to the character. Sort of a sterileness, but also like a little bit of a creepiness maybe to it. I'd be fine with. So from the front, what I'm imagining, or what the actual illustration itself I'm planning to look like, will probably have like a character. So they'll be facing this way. That arm here would probably be like out and maybe down. And this one might be out and up. One of the legs should probably be down. And this is probably all going to be silhouetted. But basically there's a person that's being suspended by something. And that will probably all be black or mostly in shadow. My drawing size is much larger than I thought. So we'll just say this is like mostly shaded in. Again, this is a sketch for myself, but hopefully it's helpful to see the process. And in the back, this is, I want all of this part here to be illuminated with like that orange light that I was kind of describing. So this will all be orange. I might just go ahead and get some orange just to help remind myself. Then maybe we'll see like the fronts or the tops of this that will have an orange kind of light on it. And in the back of this, I want to put the creature or the creator. So probably some sort of a central element. So we'll just say it's some mechanical looking shape for now. It could end up having a face. I kind of would like it to have a face. And maybe even a humanoid face or a mask or something at some point, so we could experiment with that. There's something here. But then there's probably going to be something much larger, kind of what we're looking at over here, for what this could look like. And I don't even think we're going to go to the bottom of the body. It'll probably just be like here, unless we do a crop in, which would be fine. Say this is roughly the orientation of it. And I want all of this area here to basically be orange and lit up, and I want it to underlight the face. So I know I want all this to be kind of silhouetted with this orange light, and this will probably get blocked by a lot of things. So there'll probably be something here that's maybe going to block off some of that or whatever. And then I want there to sort of be this hulking shape. So maybe the head of the character or the artist is here, for example. If it's there, then this means that this is like the farthest forward part. And it could be underlit from the lights that it's maybe there's a light source here, or there's something that's casting a light source looking at the thing it's creating. And we'll do this kind of a larger shape up here. And I'm not going to get into details, but I know that I want to have like some little hands and mechanisms, like, you know, probably like working on this thing. And not like it's a human, right? There'll be human elements to this, and there'll be humanoid elements to this, but I wanted to kind of have it where it's focusing its efforts maybe on like one area, but there's these little tiny arms or things that could be kind of coming off of screen or from this bigger object, this bigger character that could be working on it at the same time. So it's doing multiple functions as far as what it's doing. Now in reality, the crop of this will probably be much smaller, so I'm going to just do that really quickly. This is something I like to do to figure out crops. So I know that I'm going to use a 4:5 ratio. So you can go into a fixed ratio size and go width 4, height 5. You can see I've already done that. That will basically always create, when you drag this around, a 4:5 ratio. So in reality, it will probably be something like this. I'm going to invert that. I'm going to fill everything else around it. I'm going to move it down quickly because the top of it wasn't filled. I'll turn off that. And now I can kind of use this as like a shadow box as far as like what am I imagining will be in the piece itself. And will it be smaller or will it be bigger? I can also go like this and just delete to make a slightly larger size, or I could scale it if I wanted to. It's a little easier to do. But this is kind of what I'm thinking very, very roughly. So as you can tell, it's not the most beautiful drawing, but it is with the kind of things we've got here. I think this one is doing a pretty good job of communicating the overall shape that I want this to be. And you can kind of see now where the bonsai tree reference came from. It was maybe not so clear at the beginning, But you can kind of see that there was essentially like my idea of there's a little person here, and they're being held. They have an arm down, and then there's little things that are coming off this tree, and they're holding this character being created with their little limbs, or however they're holding them. It could be multiple appendages, it could be one big appendage, right? We'll have to figure that out as we move forward. I think it'll be a couple, but that's where we're going to start. All right, let's see. Any questions from the chat? I'm going to take a quick look. Looks like a dope concept. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Even though you do environment art, it's always cool to see the process of making a scene. Yeah, it's kind of fun to kind of just go through the process of this and doing something a little different. I might also do this way. This is another kind of side shot that I could do that I had thought about, knowing that the side view might what's the right word, might communicate what the end result is better. So we'll see what it ends up being, but my plan is to start with this kind of front shot and go from the side. Which archetype am I working on at the minute? Good question. We're starting on the artist or the creator. So this is our character here, this big mess of scribbles, and kind of this bigger character here, and they're creating, or the artist is making things here. This thing in the front, this humanoid shape in the front. So that's how we'll start. I'm trying to think if I need anything else before I go straight into 3D. I don't think so. I don't think I do. Looks like we got some people joining late and asking what the kind of structure of the stream is. I'm just going to do a quick rundown of that very quickly for people who have not joined before or who are running a little late. This is a Trello board that I created for this. This is a way that I kind of organize my structure and my thoughts and my scenes and all that stuff. So the one we're starting on is the creator / artist, and there are 12 archetypes. These are the 12 archetypes that exist in Carl Jung's structure. So right now we're working on the artist, which is right here, and the plan is to do a different one essentially every month. So every month we'll be doing a full character, going through the whole process, and you'll watch these characters go through, and you know what, I'll be ambitious right now and just say eventually, not done, that's not as nice of a word, let's do completed. Every week you'll watch it progress into the next phase. So right now we're in the inspiration, sketches, and ideas phase. For probably 2 weeks on this character, we'll go to the sculpting and modeling phase. Then we'll do some UVing and some texturing, some lighting and compositing, and some rendering and presentation, and then we'll be done. So that's what we're working on. And eventually we'll go through each and every one of these. But for now, we're here. Any other questions? What software do you use to color your creatures? The software that we use is probably going to be Quixel will be the first one that we use. And then we'll use a lot of Photoshop. And we'll use Zbrush to kind of figure it out at the beginning. Good question, though. All right. So we're going to jump into Zbrush. And I want to get started on Zbrush and kind of be in flow. But that means we're going to take a break here for probably about 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to play just a couple videos really quickly. So I'm going to play our videos now, and then when I come back, we will just jump straight into Zbrush, and we'll be working on the artist here. Lee is asking, do I still do all my retopo and Maya? I do. I've also been exploring ZModeler, and that's something I'm actually going to be exploring a lot of in this project. I don't think I'll be doing full, nice edge loop retopo in this series. Since it's more for concept and for speed and for creating a scene, there'll be a lot of Z remesh. There'll be a lot of kind of auto retopped stuff in these scenes. So, or just high poly, what's it called? Z modeled assets or something like that is kind of what we'll be doing a lot of. Good question though. Cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and play these videos. We'll be back, or I'll be back in a couple minutes, and we can get started. All right, well, enjoy this one. The first one I'm going to play is the short film by Alex Alvarez, founder, president, creator of the school, that he did in the Unreal Fellowship. Let's take a look. Oh, hey, welcome back, everybody. Let's get sculpting. All right, so before the break, we kind of went into Photoshop. We quickly sketched up some ideas, meaning there's going to be a large creator here on the my tablet seemed to just stop working, which is always exciting. There it is. A large creator overseeing its creation or making its creation potentially with a front view as well, even though the more I look at this, the more I like this one more. So maybe we'll be doing that. We were there. What else were we doing? I showed you a little bit of my, the reference or the way that we'll kind of be working through this, showing my organization and my structure of who the archetypes are and what we're working on. So the first one that we're working on is the artist/creator. And we're going to, you know, we're going to go into the sculpting and modeling phase. So I'm going to grab this card, which seems to not like my pen, and move it to this phase as we get going. Cool. Again, if there's any questions or any issues with the stream, please let me know as I get working, and I'm happy to answer them. So I did have this character, and if you've seen any of the art jams or any Gnomon streams or any of the tutorials I've done before, this is a character I really like using. It's from an old program called Silo, which is, this is their base man with shoes. They also had a base man with feet, which basically meant they have toes. But it's a really good, simple base mesh. And I was thinking about using this for the limp body, humanoid body, that is being created. But the issue with this is just kind of for sake of time to do more or less an anatomy study where the character will be laying in whatever it's laying in. It feels like a lot of extra work when I don't really want to focus so much on that character. So you can buy a bunch of scans, which is what I have here. This is a scanned human male character, obviously, and it is perfectly symmetrical, so it does look a little bit odd. But this is what I'm going to use for the base of the character that will be in kind of the middle. There's like a weird line here. In the limp part of the body. So I'm going to start with this as part of one of my assets that I'm going to create, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start creating the creator. It's a weird sentence to say. Creating the creator around this. So yeah, that's pretty much how we're going to get going. I was deciding if I was going to do, you know, like a sketch of the body of the creator first, or how I was going to do it. And I think I want to actually get this character just in a bit of a pose, because what's different for me when you're just looking for nose shapes, or you're just kind of searching for shapes, it can be different. I'm just also going to save my scene here to go into the correct place while I do this. Sorry, saving a file. We'll call this the creator _001. Version. It's always important to make versions. If you don't know what that is, it basically means you save this file multiple times. Alright, so I'm actually going to pose this character very briefly. Oh, looks like we need some moderation in our YouTube chat. It's exciting. If anybody happens to be a moderator on there right now, that would be awesome. Sorry, everybody, to make sure that these get fixed as quick as possible. Just switching accounts. Let's report that. Sorry, just doing some work at the moment. Alrighty, got that figured out for now, or at least it should be. All right, cool. That should be good to go. Anyways, we're going to start sculpting. So I'm going to go ahead and continue sculpting this character here now and just roughly pose them. And I did retopologize them when I got the scans, and I kind of adjusted it so that it can be worked on, right? Meaning I took the scans, retopologized it just with Z-Remesh so that it could be posed a little bit easier, added some poly groups to the character, and I'll probably continue to do that with this as well. Cool. Thanks for the Trello recommendation. Downloaded it now to help organize my workflow. I love it. It's a free program, which is honestly one of the best parts about it. Meaning that, like, it's free. I don't know much more to say about it than that. You know, it's like, it's just cool because it's free and you can organize your thoughts with it really well. You can make a bunch of different types of boards, and you can do cool stuff on it. So I'm not going to go crazy with this pose. I just need it to not be a T-pose, effectively. I'm going to switch back to lo-fi because I don't know if I'm digging these jams. All right. So maybe the arms will be back. They'll probably be like rotated outwards, so I'm going to adjust that very quickly. And then now that I'm also sculpting, I'm going to switch our orientation here. I'm going to make the screen just a little bit bigger for everybody so you can see it and get this out of the way. So it's rotating them outwards a little bit. Seems to be helpful and kind of creating that pose. And then I'm also going to just extend the arms a little bit. Probably do the same to the hands / wrists. Again, we'll just go very quickly back in the, just so that the pose isn't so stiff. Something that can get a little bit more in the zone of what we're looking at. And now I'll probably just start rotating the body pretty drastically. So I'm just going to rotate it. I'm not super concerned about symmetry. Part of the reason I chose this scan is that it has detail, so that I'm not going to have to sculpt everything from scratch. That's not kind of the point of this character that we're working on. So right now we're setting up to actually focus on the creator. We'll just say maybe they kind of got their head turned to a side. You can turn it slightly to a side, but before that I'm going to spin it to a side, and maybe it's just kind of doing this. Maybe we'll even grab one of these legs. I'm going to separate them. You can use your polygroups auto groups, which will immediately separate any two meshes that are not a single mesh into two polygroups, which is pretty cool. So I think I had my very quick sketches. I basically had like one of the legs like coming back. Looks like that might need to go a little further. So I'm going to visibility grow this piece, mask it again, and that'll hopefully help. I'll even paint in a little bit of a mask here. This arm. And this is more, again, just so I can get working on it and not have something that kind of feels distracting in a way. Sometimes when you're working with like a scale model, meaning a model you're really just using for scale or for reference or something like that, if they're in just like such a non-pleasing, appealing pose, it can be, for me at least, it can be very hard to work with. Apparently the bottoms of those feet are incredibly thin. So I was trying to do a very quick thing there. And this is basically, again, so that it feels like they're sitting there. The hips would probably shift a little bit, even if they are being held still. If they were sitting at this angle, the weight of that leg going down would mean that it was pulling the hip. So I want to go, I guess, like this way, and basically rotate it like this. So that means that the hip would change. This will create a little bit more contrapposto dynamism. A lot of words for this, but just something that'll maybe make it not feel like they're just weekend at Bernie's hanging out. And this one I wanted to kind of be, it will have to be like supported by something. But I like the idea of it basically if you hold down Alt while you're using the transpose lines, you can get a more natural bend. You have to be careful because sometimes it will squish or destroy your model. Oh, and I wasn't holding down Alt the whole time. You kind of have to align the camera a little bit. So we're not going to see the front of the character very often. Realistically, most of what we're going to see is the back. Let's go ahead and do that ankle again. And also, if we do this now, we don't have to do it later. But just in general, you know, I'll just reiterate, I always find that posing, working in a pose, even though if it's slightly more challenging sometimes, is so much more easier when you're actually working on the character. There we go. Since this leg is up, I'm going to bring this leg up just to have it be the opposite. So his arm up. Do you always sculpt for the final image instead of doing the whole character? If it's for something like concept art or something where you're not ever really planning to show the back or the side or whatever, then yeah, I would just sculpt that section. A good example is, let's say you're doing concept art, you know, or you're doing an image of a character that wears a helmet, you know, and they got a suit or something like that, and that's who this character is going to be. There's no point, you know, especially if you're doing it for production, to spend all the time designing the boots and the pants and the stuff that's very likely going to be out of frame, because they want to know what, you know, Star-Lord's helmet looks like, not what his boots look like, right? So that's an easy way to think of like why you would just work on a piece of it. If they like the helmet, then you can always come back and work on the boots. Just going to do a little twist here. Since this one went back, that usually means that this side goes forward. And we can just give him a little twist. Bring this head back. It's kind of fine. Again, this is going to be the pose that we're going to see it in most of the time. Also, kind of matrixy, like when Neo gets picked up and he's kind of like being held up there. I guess that's kind of what this is. This one I would probably have hang out I'm going to pose myself real quick. Probably elbow to the side. I often find it's easier to do a pose or to pose a character if I do it in real life. If I mimic that. I see a lot of animators do that as well. A lot of animators will act out the scenes or do the reference themselves, videotape themselves. Videotape. Nobody says videotape anymore, Josh. They will capture footage of themselves. Do people say videotape? I don't know. What I'm hoping to get is basically this part of the wrist, even though I'm not going to spend a lot of time posing the hands right now. Hoping to get a little bit of the wrist, which just kind of feels limp. Maybe even get a little bit back of the arm bend in there. You say videotape? Okay, I'm not the only one who's alone. Good, thank you. Good question for the chat. Something I was thinking about as I was prepping for this stream and this character. If you can think of archetypes in media, in film, in games, comic books, etc., that are artists, the artist, somebody who seeks perfection in something that they work in, an innovator, a tinkerer. If anybody has ideas or good examples, I'd love to hear them. One that came up quite a bit in the lists as I was doing this research was Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka being a really good artist slash innovator, creator. I think that's probably going to be fine for what we've got here. So I'm going to just save this very quickly. And then we'll get to the actual character. Now I only have about 45 minutes in the stream today. And I think we've got a good start here. That arm looks pretty jacked up right now. So again, I don't want to be just too distracting. But I think if we make a character, you know, who's going to be this big, roughly, right? In comparison, it should probably be like this large. And we'll just start with that piece. The thing I am going to do, am I going to do this? I am. I'm going to rotate this character around, mostly so that the fronts and the sides are accurate. When I'm looking at this, meaning this should be the back. So this will be the front of the creator character. So let's bring in, just a Dr. Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein is absolutely an artist or the creator. He's probably also a little bit of the magician. Absolutely, though. And then what would, I guess, you know, follow up, like, what is Frankenstein's, the monster, is probably, like, the innocent. You're working along with me. You haven't even left Blender yet, even for the sketching. That's okay. Everybody's process is going to be different. If anybody decides to follow along with the stream, whether you're working on your own stuff or whether you're working on this, please let us know. Shout us out on social so we can take a look at it. All right, I got to get going on the actual character, right? I said I'd do a cube. I think a cube is probably, you could do a sphere. Spheres are fine too. Let's just put a sphere in here. And all I'm going to be going for on this session, meaning I have about 50 minutes left in the stream, is basically looking for shapes. Looking for shapes as knowing that this object is going to be overlooking, you know, looking at our reference again every now and then. So I'm going to toggle back and forth to this. If this is the character, there needs to be something kind of overlooking this thing. All right, so I'm going to just try to capture this gesture, try to capture some of what this idea is, not necessarily looking for the most beautiful sculpture, because we can always refine sculpture, we can always figure out what that will be. But the idea and the block out is probably the hardest part, to be honest. I like how this has like sort of this face that would be working on it. And part of the creator as the archetype is that they're so focused on what they're working on, they don't really see other things around them sometimes. Or they don't see the repercussions. Yeah, this thing needs to be bigger. So I'm just going to scale this up. So no, the character will not be a bean. Will not be a bean-shaped character. There will probably be a sort of certain gesture to them. But we're going to essentially block all this out. Just getting rough masses, proportions, shapes, sizes. And I'm going to toggle Dynamesh on right now. Start at the lowest resolution, 32. That's actually not bad. Let's see what 64 looks like. Let's go back to 32. Can always go up. So now we're going to start with this. I think I'll probably end up having, like I was saying, I wanted some shape in here. I like that this was sort of a peaked shape. Something in here that will be looking at this character. Probably some more shapes in here. I want to get some of that gesture in that I had, this swoop. I could obviously bring in the image and have it as a reference plane or things like that. I could also use this see-through mode in Zbrush where you can actually sculpt while you're looking to the back of it, which can be effective, but I don't know if I'm going to use it that heavily. Now I'm really just going to start making shapes. Now a lot of this is just going to be sketchy, so I'm just going to be looking for the overall, meaning in reality we're going to see the character like this probably. Right, they're working on it, meaning we're not really going to see any of the back, we're not going to see any of this other stuff down here. Neil from YouTube says they're digitally drawing a character along with the stream. Any positions in the industry that someone who does 2D character design should look into? I mean, that's character design. That's character concept art, right? As a lot of that is done in 2D, so that's definitely an industry or a focus that you could look into. I want this to kind of have a hunch. I do like this shape of it feeling. Whether or not we see it or not, I think I do want it to have this kind of vibe to it. Maybe it's so large that we're not even going to see the rest of the character, meaning, you know, part of me initially was feeling like maybe this is like the legs or something up here, but maybe it's actually connected. It's all connected. It's all connected into some like big thing, right? Almost like a tree. Using that bonsai tree reference, maybe, you know, maybe there's some thing that it's like connected into. All around it. Let's see what we got. You feel like artists aren't depicted as the creator in cinema that often? They can be. I mean, somebody like a Tony Stark is absolutely the creator. Also, they do get, it doesn't have to be one. So, for example, one that I was looking at, we'll go over to our Trello board really quickly. Samwise, for example, the caregiver, ended up showing up on several, you know, examples as other characters. He was also the every person. He was that one for sure, as somebody who just kind of embodies the normal person in those movies. You know, this isn't normal kind of a thing. And then also a little bit of the innocent would be somebody like a Samwise. What you didn't know about the see-through mode? Yeah, absolutely. Oh no, you've been concepting in your program for pros. So sorry to hear that. Hopefully, it comes back for you. I'm gonna save this. I realized I didn't save this either. Save this archetype creator sketches. Yeah, the old the Viking myth of Yggdrasil, the world tree, and life stemming from that is kind of what I wanted this. It wasn't necessarily coming from the world tree, but this tree reference plus this sort of like creator vibe is kind of what got me, I think, in that same mindset where it's something is there, something, you know, what was the world tree doing that gave it its, you know, powers, or what is it that, you know, creates these things. Also, like the strings of fate is a very common thing that I was kind of thinking about, you know, that they kind of played on that a little bit, I think, in God of War, one of those ones. But yeah, I thought it could be interesting. So with that, I'm going to smooth out some of this stuff. Roy from Facebook. Hello, Roy. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the stream. Let's pull out some of this stuff. Likelihood that we'll see most of this, pretty slim, but it would be nice to be able to kind of pull apart some of these things just to have like a base to work from. Again, the likelihood that we'll see any of this is pretty slim, but it's kind of the same methodology of, you know, again, if I had just started making this part of the character and I hadn't done this quick pose on this scan, in reality all we would be seeing is this, and this isn't very interesting, right? It's just not. So this is how we need to, it's important to kind of keep the whole thing in context when we work on it. Now I was thinking about the idea of it having some really large shapes on the side. Oh, that's why I was working on the wrong piece. Something that would kind of stick out over this, and almost something that might like function almost as like the middle of a spine down this. I'm going to switch to my smooth, stronger brush. Excuse me. It helps to kind of create planar shapes. Something that could kind of branch over this. Almost feel like the shoulder blades of the character. I'm going to mask off this little beak. I don't really know what that would be. We can call it a beak, I guess. So I can move the rest of this stuff around it. I kind of like this idea of it kind of coming way far away in the body. And then just because I can, I want to start blocking out some of those secondary gestures, because I think it's going to be a little difficult to figure out exactly what this is going to look like just with the big gesture here. So I'm actually just going to duplicate this whole piece. So you'll see I have two now. I'm going to hide. I'm not going to hide. I'm just going to make it smaller. I'm using stroke replay last to make this smaller, repeating the function over and over. In case you don't know what that means, under stroke modifiers, oh, sorry, oh, just not even under modifiers, just right here, replay last. What this does is if you make a line, meaning I can sculpt something, I can go into stroke, hit the replay last button, and it will repeat said stroke over and over. You can also switch your brushes, and it will let you do that. It's a cool feature. By default, in ZBrush, it is mapped to the number 1 on your keyboard as a hotkey. But what you can also do with it is ZBrush counts any stroke of any type as a movement, a stroke on the canvas, right? And so what that means is rotating the model is also a stroke. So if I rotate the model, we'll just go a little bit, just this much, and I go stroke replay last, you'll see that the model will move at the same increment as we just did the first time. Now what that also means is that I can scale something, so that's what I was actually doing. Apparently I had that piece still masked. So we'll undo this and use it as an example. turn symmetry on. I'll scale this down, but it's not going to let me scale it down as far as I want, so I can go into stroke, replay last, and that can do the same function for me. Doing pretty good, about to go to bed. It's 2 in the morning. Well, enjoy your sleep. Have a good one. And watch the VODs tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. It'll be all of these streams, but this one. We also have a new upcoming stream tonight called Creature Corner. So if you're interested in creatures, it'll be hosted by Jared Kraszewski, who's Gnomon's creature modeling and sculpting instructor, also a Gnomon alumni as well. He will be doing a stream tonight at 8 p.m. on the same channel. And both streams, this one, Archetype and Creature Corner, will be saved on YouTube and Twitch for VOD. So feel free to check those out. I'm going to make like one arm, I think. Is there hotkey / shortcut for replay last? Number 1 is by default what it is. Eastern and Pacific, these will all be Pacific times. We're based in Hollywood, so that's what we're operating off of. So I want to kind of get some of this motion here. Right now it's definitely too low, so I'm going to just drag it up. I'm just going to move the whole piece up. So I do not think it will be as tentacly as it looks right now. But I do want it to kind of have like a sort of a gentle gesture to it, which is kind of why the tentacle works in a way. But there will probably be a couple of them. Maybe it's like a special, you know, bed or something that this thing creates. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to just mirror it over entirely. Mirror. Let's make it as a new subtool. So we have one. Here's one. Here's the other one. This one does not need to be doing the same thing. I don't need it to look like it's... Well, I guess it could. That's an interesting thing. Almost looks like it's holding them. This is all simple composition stuff, but I think it's important at least it's important for me to know where this is going, to know what the end result is going to be, and try to kind of figure that out as fast as I can. So these pieces might be merged into one piece later, but it's something I'm trying to not concern myself with too much. Right now I'm just using multiple meshes, kind of basically saying I like what one of these looks like at its default, right? And then or parts of it. And rather than fight that, I'm just going to add to it. something will have to be holding one of those hands there, but that's okay. And this pose still might change pretty drastically. Again, we're only about an hour, 30 minutes in, so this could be wildly different than what it appears to be right now. I do like sort of the organic nature that we're going with. Did your program ever come back? Harrison, looks like you were saying you were concepting and your program froze. Hopefully everything came back. As I ask you that, it makes me super paranoid, so I'm going to save. Always save. All right. It crashed, but your work was auto-saved. Hurrah! Huzzah! Oh man, I've been in a Renaissance fair in a very long time. For some reason, hurrah made me think of huzzah, which makes me think of that. Alright, I think this is kind of getting there. Parts of this are working. Right, this is generally some of that size that we were talking about. Obviously, there's no real design happening in the in what we see here. I like this gesture we're going to have that I haven't really captured. And this is why we do the sketch, right? A couple quick lines can really inspire a lot. You know, I think if you look at so many iconic characters through film and games and stuff like that, it can be a quick, simple napkin sketch is what most people would probably think of, but just something where it is simple and it doesn't appear to be a huge deal, but it can generate a lot of interest and ideas and stuff like that. So on this one, I was also kind of playing with that's what this idea is right here, that there was is like sort of dividing line in what this thing would be. So I'd kind of gotten it there a little bit, but it's also making some interesting shapes that I'm not in love with right now. Part of me wants to like have this thing like really close to them. And part of me wants to have some of these hands or appendages be limbs. So I might take something in here and pull it out. I could also always use these elements. So these are the things from the previous things. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to make it a poly group. And let's just see what happens if we merge this. Not merge, sorry, append. How small are you? Oh, either very small or very big. Oh, you're very, very small. Show the whole body. In this instance, you can do this move. Oh, dear Lord. It just disappeared on me. But I was actually going to tell you to not do that because it's not as good. You can also use the other one, but the gizmo. But I just like to use the size slider. So crank that up to 100 a couple times. Very arcane, right? A little arcane reference there. Crank it. Okay, so anybody knows what that is. Where did it go? Where did everything go? Aha! Don't know if anybody's been watching Arcane, but it's pretty amazing. Beautiful film, or not film, beautiful series. Okay, you're somewhere. You're still very small. But I think let's just keep sizing this up. over here. It's definitely a thing that happens sometimes where you're working with multiple files. They're in different spaces and places. And now I may be way too large. I honestly don't know anymore. Because this is everything. There you are. Let's get you down here. You guys probably can't even see it. It's like it's a nearly invisible pixel that I'm going to put next to this nearly invisible pixel. It is now shunted itself off far into the void. But we can fix them. How do you stay relevant? Oh, interesting. Good question. Honestly, just keep working. That's a lot of it. Keep working. Just keep working. Keep trying to do new things. Keep trying to do cool things. Work with cool people on cool projects. No real special sauce for that. But thank you. I appreciate that. Very kind words. As a concept artist, how long does a concept art piece take to make a fully rendered concept? And what's a junior turnaround for a concept artist, or what would I expect? Really good questions. It depends. It's such a cop-out answer, and I know I'll say that off the top, but it does depend, because you're kind of needing to, or I guess part of the question is, what are you making and what stage of the process are you in? Meaning, are you doing just really, roughs, and it's time to just see ideas, or are you doing, a finely finished piece, right? You are asking to do how long it would take to do a finely rendered piece, and I think the minimum for a lot of people is going to be a couple days, meaning 2 days, usually, sometimes 3 days, to do a full nice painting or something with a lot of 3D. 2 to 3 days seems to be kind of the average for that. There are some places that take longer or need, some people that do things faster, some people that do things slower, so it really does depend, but I would say a couple days is the average. And then I think your question about juniors is a really good question. And that is just kind of generally, like juniors, people who are more entry level and are just kind of starting their career, they don't have the same expectations on them, or at least they certainly shouldn't have the same expectations on them that somebody who's more senior in their career does, right? So, all that really means is if it takes a senior 2 days to do a really great piece of concept art, it probably takes a junior 4 or 5 days or 6 days or a week or more than a week. And that's part of just production. That's part of being in a collaborative nature where certain people are doing more things or less things, right? That's just kind of how it works. I like these kind of little tiny human hands. And I want to see what it would look like if there were some almost human-like appendages coming out of this thing. That's kind of what I was hinting at here. So I want to see what that looks like. Would they be like long and like this? Oh, now it looks like it's going to like eat their soul. Or this way, I had it kind of like this way. Like little insect mandibles, maybe, but just kind of like their hands. Like this creator's got to be working on these people, so it needs to have big, strong hands that it can work with, manipulate with, or tiny, delicate hands. So one of them will probably be focusing on like one thing, and one could probably focus on like another thing. Or just the idea of these kind of things. being here. And again, this is all, today what we're doing is all kind of compositional, vibe, mood, proportion. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this. We're just trying to capture what it could be in the future. So we'll capture one of these maybe. Maybe this one's arm is like kind of down here, doing something on this like part of the hand maybe. Maybe it's got like a tool. The background music is so good, please share. Sure, I'll share that with you real quick. We're using Spotify today, and we're using the playlist by somebody named Chan called Royalty Free Lo-Fi. Yeah, the animation style of Arcane is absolutely beautiful. Just stunningly beautiful. And it looks like they're doing something interesting, which is they're doing drops of 3. So it's a weekly series, but every week, I think, or every couple of weeks, they're dropping 3 episodes at a time, not 1 episode at a time. I thought that was really interesting. Just doing it a little differently and just kind of cool. But maybe this is the hand that's like working on this arm. But yeah, I'm very curious to see where the show goes. We just caught up to it last night. We're on just wrapped up episode 3. So I think it'll be a fun one. I'm a big League fan anyways. Played a lot of League. Too much League, probably. It's interesting seeing the backstory and some of the history of the characters and who they choose to bring into that, as far as, you know, who's a character that's important to focus on, who's a champion that's not important to focus on. I've been enjoying it. Ooh, that's an extra creepy little hand, but I like it. I do want these to be more spindly. Like I said, I do want it to have a slightly unsettling nature to this whole thing. I don't want it to look like it's just a straight up human, so we are going to have a couple moments here. We're going to be transforming human pieces into something else. And this is really just a block out, meaning I will very likely replace all of these with other sculpts that I do. And by next week, they'll have a lot more done to be able to show it. Was it created by Riot's studio? I don't know the answer to that. I had heard that it might have been made by a French company, the animation itself, but I'm not sure. Sorry. Oh, I love 3D so much because little things like this happen where you're just like, oh, I'm zooming in real close on this character. Let's isolate it. Let's like make it look good. And then just all of a sudden you're like, oh, what the hell is this? The real creator is here. Oh, it's amazing. All right, I gotta delete these other pieces because that's just not gonna work. Okay, how do we do that? Geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. There we go. Oh, that's amazing. Yes, a new species of human. Amazing. All right, we got some general starting points here, which I'm actually starting to feel okay about. I do think that this, maybe we could have some more gesture like I had here, and we'll just generally bring this up and say maybe there's some things here, gesture-wise. You can also hit V. These apparently have a color on them right now, but we'll turn off all the color so you can also see which piece is being highlighted. If you hit V, it'll automatically switch your colors here on the left. If you're using a matte cap, matte caps do not receive light, meaning you cannot light them, you cannot adjust the lighting on them, any of that. So if you hit V, it'll just turn into a silhouette, which is kind of cool. And this is really, really useful for this type of work where it's like, oh, I want to adjust. Like this is perfect. Like I want to adjust. Okay, go away color. Just a little brush there to make that go away. Adjust this silhouette about what this character looks like and what this gesture looks like, and you know what all this stuff is kind of tied into, and maybe it's I can just kind of sculpt for a little while in silhouette only. Not entirely sure what that's making from a structural sculpting standpoint, but it can result in some cool ideas. Since we're already kind of going with this bonsai tree thing, you know, like there's sort of this weaving that happens within human Rex, yes. There's like this kind of weaving that happens within this, and then the idea of this maybe being the torso. I'm just going to play around with that a little bit. It does mean that I think this torso here is real thin. So let's just thicken that up. And I'm not still in love with the overall shape, but the profile is starting to work pretty well. Something about the idea of this thing having like a large central element, and then we'll just duplicate this really quickly. Again, I'm going to resculpt all of these arms and stuff, right? But this could be an interesting opportunity to make it very scary. You know, basically find new ways that this could work, or new elements of this that could kind of tie in. So maybe there's some other sets of arms, not just the one set of arms. There should be several. Maybe they come from different places. And again, going back to this, we're kind of looking at the idea that there would be these, this kind of idea, right? So the initial sketches and concept were that something would be overlooking this. And right now it feels like it's a little large from the front view to kind of capture that entirely, at least if this is the head. Right? So it could be something much smaller. I like the idea of there being some sort of a larger shape here to kind of compete with, just to give it like some humanoid references. Liking this sort of silhouette that I'm accidentally creating by rotating it in. Maybe the arms don't attach like they would in a human. They don't even have to have the same configuration. I'm actually just going to split these so that they're totally different objects. I'll just like make this really thin. This could be some weird thing. It doesn't have to be a hand. Obviously I'm using a hand, so it's turning into a hand right now. It doesn't need to be. Some weird device. Ooh, there we go. I always wanted to kind of feel like it was holding it. So maybe it's working on this hand and this like little tray hand. And we're coming up with so many fake names. The tray hand. It comes over and it like holds the arm up. Gently though, like holding it up. And that would be a good excuse to make the arm come out, which is what I was wanting. And it's a better pose anyways for the silhouette. I'm gonna have to deal with some compositional stuff at some point. This thing looks like it's made out of a corkscrew. That's part of it. But we'll end up getting stuff, and this hand can probably be almost entirely hidden. Maybe we just see a little bit of it. Let's go back to this one. What could this one be doing? Alex Walter from YouTube asks, are the books behind you on the shelf art-related, reference materials, or other genres? They're a whole mess of different things. So there's, what we got back here, we got some art books, some reference books, some art of books, some graphic novels, a Mandalorian helmet, some D&D books, some other rule books, and a couple board games. A little bit of everything. All the books. Let's get this last hand in there. Show the body again. I kind of, you know what, actually, instead of trying to warp this whole hand, I'm just going to delete it. Great. I'm just going to mirror this one. So I'm going to go back into my plugin. I'm going to mirror it, and I'm going to append it as a new tool. Now I have two, but I don't want it to do exactly the same thing. I just kind of like how it's like attached up here in the same spot. So I'm going to keep that, at least part of that. And I'll probably just, I don't know, find a new thing for this arm to do. You know, it could be the thing that's maybe like this thing that I'm not really in love with the shape of this thing. It could be very like a thin slab that the character's sitting on. I mean, it's probably maybe more like a thing that's like this size. I think I like that more because then you get to see more of the character that they're working on. So we'll just pretend that's one piece, I guess. Maybe they're held like this. And it could be much more hard-edged than what we see right now. And that might make it a little more interesting to see the body on. That would give us a reason with these hand tray things to have them. Oh. This one supports the legs, or that leg. What does that look like, though? It does look like it's kind of cutting the leg off, doesn't it? Looks like maybe it has to be on the inside. That's really weird. Something has to be holding this thing up, though. So we'll figure that out later. For now, you can just be doing that anyways. Sure. It's kind of creating a semi-symmetrical composition, which is part of the goal of what I wanted with this. So that we would kind of see this character highlighted in the space. Again, this will there will basically be an orange light here, and that will illuminate everything inside of here and should silhouette the character. That's my plan as of now. What's my PC setup like? Good question. Here, I'll just quickly show you some of the specs, or read them off to you, I believe. This is a i9, 3.5 gigahertz, 64 gigs of RAM, and I'm using a 2080. Let's go back to our silhouette view. So now you can kind of get a better view of what this is looking like. Added a couple shapes here. Those aren't really going to impact the silhouette, but it is what it is. These are also all Dynamesh objects, so I can quickly adjust their shape. Do you think this will probably be the face, or it will have some form of a humanoid face in here? So that's what this will be. I'm going to do Dynamesh, but I'm going to go up a subdivision level. 64. Cool. So now I can add a little bit more detail. But not just the detail isn't really what I'm looking for anymore, because there never was to begin with. It's just starting to define what some of these shapes might be is an important part of this. So I know that I want there to sort of be a central chest, because I like how from the profile that it kind of feels like there is a body in here or something. So I'm going to make a central shape. This will be a helmet or mask of some kind. There will probably be a decently sized recess around this thing, though. I think that would be interesting to just kind of intensify that a little. Also make it stick out a little bit more from the profile view. There needs to be a lot more going on, like with all this kind of stuff, so I need to figure out some shapes in here that will be interesting. We are almost wrapping up on the stream here. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left. If you enjoyed the stream and you want to check out more, please feel free to join us next week for Art Jam. Or, I'm sorry, I've been doing Art Jam for so long. Please join us next week for Archetype. And we have a whole ton of other stuff coming up too. So tonight we have our Creature Corner stream that is starting tonight. It's premiering tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific. So that will be hosted by Jared Kraszewski, an amazing creature designer, also one of our instructors here at Gnomon. And he'll be talking through his process on stuff, working through and evaluating designs and monsters of the week. So go ahead and check that stuff out if that seems interesting to you. And we also have our Art Jam, which is going to continue on Wednesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific. So generally, you know, rather than promoting a single stream, I think it would be better to say, if you're interested in some of the content you're looking at, or you like watching some of these makings of, or just kind of hanging out while we're working on projects or the events or anything about that, I would recommend subscribing or following the channel that you're on. Because whatever you're watching, whether it's Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, that's where we'll be streaming. We'll be there again. All right, a lot more to do. I want to put some little tiny hands in here. I think some really small ones. So before we leave, I'm just going to start blocking that out again, duplicating, and I'm going to go and just very quickly mirror this and scale this down. And before I do that, because I'm a very paranoid person, I'm going to save. So I want these like really tiny ones that are going to be coming out of like here. I want the gesture to be going in there, and maybe it's like an assistive thing, maybe it's holding something. Right, but in the overall scope of things, I think it's just going to add a little bit of sort of like a smaller, more tertiary detail than something bigger. I do want to get some stuff coming down from the top too. I liked how there was like almost a... Just try it one time real quick. What if we did this? This just looks like Starship Troopers. He sucked his brains out. Alright, we'll see if that's going to do anything. It probably won't, but we'll play around with it, and I'll keep working on this. So the goal for this is going to be 6 streams to complete this piece. So this is the first one, obviously, is what you're watching now. So probably for the next stream, the entire next stream will be focusing on modeling and sculpting. Then we'll be getting into more texturing and other programs and retopology and you know, getting outside of ZBrush, which should be fun. So that'll be cool. But it is 12 o'clock noon now, so thank you everybody so much for joining me on the stream. I really do appreciate it, and I think it'll be a fun character and a fun creature for us to continue working on. It's been fun hanging out with all y'all, and yeah, I'll see you all next week. I'll see you next week, and I'll also see you tomorrow evening on Art Jam. So everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.